Assalamu alaikum. Today I'm at a laboratory here and I'm going to critique some of the work that they're getting. Now look at this implant. They should have sent an abutment, but before that the implant is placed wrong. It should have been right down the middle. Imagine they cannot bisect this simple space right here. And now you look at the occlusion. Where is the implant at? It's totally outside the envelope. Where is the crown going to be? Couldn't they place it right down the middle when they're placing it, like in this angle? It is so unfortunate. Now it is sent to the laboratory to make a crown which is going to be lopsided. And if this was placed in the middle and they wanted some accuracy, they should have sent the actual abutment so the crown will be made fitting. There is some space right there, but there's too much space right here. It's lopsided mesiodistally, and facial lingual is totally in the off zone. This should have been the center of the implant. All they had to do was draw a line right there and draw a line right there and place the implant right down the middle. So we'll put this aside. Now you look at this. This is supposed to be a bridge. What happened to this? Look at this area. The reduction is ridiculous. This is too much reduction. This tooth should have been prepped only till this level right there. Only 1.5 millimeters or 2, and this is total topi. Look at this lateral incisor, totally cut sideways. And then they're asking the lab to manufacture a bridge, so it is stuck into the ridge, and that's called the ridge lab design. That is going to cause infection, and the soft tissue is not going to be cleanable. Where is the bridge for this? Iska bridge kidhar hai? So we'll put this aside. Now here's another example. Same thing with the bridge. Overcutting. This is the same one, and look, the bridge is ridge lapped. This black part should not even be there. The bridge design has to be like the ridge right there. This is the buccal. Ridge lap should not be there. It should not be covering the lingual aspect of it. Bring it back, please. So let's put this aside. Now look at this. Somebody sent this as an impression to do a full bridge. Even if you were to do this one bridge here, or combine, you should not combine two teeth. And look how they carved it in. And this is the margin they have. Get close up to it, please. What margin do we have? What is this? Look at that. And here, there's a bubble right on the margin itself. And right there. This is horrible example. Here we have another one. Look at this. This is how the teeth were before. Yeah. And now it is after right here. Look at this. What have they done? And extracted this tooth out. I don't know why. And look at this tooth. It's cut right there. Now in this case, why won't you give a partial? Or if you're doing a bridge these two, and maybe with a pontic as a cantilever. This tooth did not need to be crowned. All it needed was a filling. And look at these two good teeth. This is so horrible. You could give a Maryland bridge right there. So this is a horrible example. Let's come to the next one. Now this prep. It is prepped all around. You can barely read the margins, but here is a problem. You have jump ski right there. I'll explain to you what jump ski is. In this margin right here, if you take a look, get closer please. The margins are very wide and they are lifted at the end. This is unsupported. You can't have jump ski right there. It is supposed to be smooth, and the margin is supposed to be, I'll draw another one here. .75 millimeter. And it's supposed to be sloping down. This is about 1.5 millimeter margin. Get closer. The prep is not too bad. We have delineation of the lingual cusp and the facial cusp, but the margins cannot be easily read. There are two margins right here also, and we do not know if the margin is here or down here. Electrocert should be done, everything should be smooth, and there should be no ski jumps. Now let's come to this one. This is an onlay they made, lingual cusp onlay. Where is the retention? What is going to hold it in beside just the cement? And the principle of an onlay is that you have to cover the functional cusp in case of functional cusp or an occlusion. The occlusion is going to be right here. This is lower arch. The buccal cusp is an occlusion. The onlay needed to be brought down to this level. Wherever the occlusion ends, this is going to break. If you go back and read your books, it says that. I'm not saying anything new. Now let's look at this next one. Look at this. What is this? What are we looking at? Where is the prep? I can't see the prep. There's no margin I can see. is just trimmed away, and this is also trimmed away. God knows where the occlusion is. Now let's take a look at this one. This is somebody's class which is off. I do not know where the bite is, and they are divergent preps. This one is going that way, this one is going that way, so the bridge is not parallel. The laboratory would have to trim this or make the margin wide, and this has to be trimmed on the distal also. These are supposed to be abutments of a bridge. They're supposed to be parallel at least to each other, but not obtusely outwards. So this was the opposing of that. I'm mixing it all up. I don't even know what this is. Somebody has done these prostheses. Look at this. Look at the buccolingual width. Look at this. This is an impression of something that somebody has done. Now let's look at the next case. Now these are the impressions that are coming to lab. There are no margins, and if you see sideways, what do you see? Where is the prep? There are no margins. They just teeth are just cut probably in 5 minutes, and whoever did it is very proud that they can do a prep in 5 minutes. Okay, this is an opposing. Now look at this. What are these preps? These cannot even qualify as topi preps, and I do not know why would they need to do crowns. If the teeth were like this on the right side, why would they need to do crowns on these teeth? And there are no margins. These teeth are connected right on the middle, and these might be verti preps, which actually should never be done. Now let's look at more. Look, somebody has done this too. This is kind of bridge. There's no anatomy right there, none whatsoever. Tooth is sunk in. This is a model. Now look at this prep right there. Same thing. You cannot see the margins anywhere. What kind of prep has been done? We do not know. We have example after example after example. Another bridge right there. Let's see. Look at this one. Look at this shahkar. Somebody took the teeth and they cut all of them. Did they even need to be restored? And I bet you they're going to join them all. And these are topi conical preps. This is the lab work at this lab of today. I still have to wait for even a single crown prep that could be called reasonable. These are all unreasonable preps. Look at this one. I'm just picking it up. What is this? Look at how it is cut. Where is the draw? There's an undercut right there. Can you see any margin? Get closer, please. This is where the impression material alginate got pulled. Hardly anybody is giving vinyl polysiloxane. Everything is an alginate. Look at this one. There we go. I'll cover the name. What do you see? Nothing. The lab has to create a margin. So now they will make a crown which is going to be bigger. And the doctor doesn't care. They just shove it and take their money, and that's fine. And look at this one. Wonderful. Where is the prep? And with this money we're going to go do Qurbani. And this is halal earning. This is pure haram. The book never says how to do these preps. Now take a look at these. There's a bubble right at the margin of this horrible prep. There's a bubble right there. There's a bubble right here. What are they going to do? Nothing. Look at next one. Come here. Look at these. They just cut these front teeth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teeth. 7. They just cut them. Did the patient actually need crowns? Maybe they just had space. Maybe composite is all they needed. And these are all conical crowns. And lab cut the stone right there to make the margins. Now the margins are going to be big, and they'll be cemented inside the mouth, money put in the pocket, and you go for umrah. Wonderful, mashallah. Take a look. Lab had to cut the margins again. You're earning haram. This is like taking pig meat to the house. Yes, I'm emotional about it because this is ridiculous work. The lab had to make these cuts in the stone to try to give them a crown with open margins. This is horrible. Next one. Here. Look at this. Okay, let's say somebody wanted to do a bridge. Why would you do this? All the teeth are cut, so you can give fixed teeth. Sometimes it's a good idea to reject to the patient and say, I'm not going to do haram. You need a partial or an implant back there. But every single tooth is cut horribly. No wonder everybody boasts that we do crown preps in 2 to 5 minutes each tooth. This is the preps they're doing. Where is the margin right there? This is soft tissue. In improvisation group, everybody's talking about electrosurge. Everybody's talking about laser surgery, and we have this laser and we have that laser, and we can do the margin exposure with diamond and cut the soft tissue. This is a laboratory I'm at. I still want to see a single prep. Look at this. What is this? Where is the margin? Where is the shoulder margin? Nowhere to be seen. And these are for zirconia. You're charging good money from the patient. What are you going to do right here? Take a look. There's a big dip right there. There's no prep. Chili. Give me more. Okay, here. Another one. Take a look. What is this? Again, the lab had to create the margin by cutting into the cast. And these are all alginate impressions. See the lab burr? There is no margin. Whatever they make, it will fit on the occlusion and the margins will be open, and the Dr. Saab will cement it with cement, and they'll be very happy, take the money and go celebrate Eid al-Adha. Alhamdulillah, we are doing Qurbani for Allah and with haram mal. This one has a little bit of occlusal dip, but if you see sideways, there is no clearance between this and the second premolar, so there is no occlusal clearance. Now once this crown goes back in or a bridge, they're going to be trimming the opposing tooth, and that will be it. Another one. Oh, this is the before and after. Astaghfirullah. Look, you know what happened? See that? It's incredible. They extracted the canines, and they extracted both canines, and they are making a bridge. Central incisor didn't need anything done. And then they say patient doesn't want ortho. You reject the wrong treatment. Imagine somebody comes over, they're 90 years old, and they want the marriage in hand of your daughter who is 17. Would you give it to them just because they want your daughter? Don't do this. Look, this case, which could have been so wonderful, even if you wanted to make this into lateral incisor, do composite on it, for God's sake. Why take the canines out and then do this? And you know, your lab people, they think very low of you when you send this kind of work. Yes, they're doing the work because you ask them to do, but they make fun of you, they laugh about you, and they know that you are SOBs. That's the kind of work you're doing. Take a look at this. Is this a prep? Is this a prep? What happened? Overcut by 3 millimeters? Look right here. Somebody just shoved it through. There is no impression. There is no margin right there. And look at this. Looking at the rest of the mouth, these teeth did not need crown, very likely. But just somebody cut them, and the gingival margin doesn't even match from right to left. These are just chopped up teeth. Let's look at some more. Look at this. Subhanallah. Just teeth cut all around. This is a partial case. This is not a bridge case, opposing of this. So guess what? They're making a lot of money to do, mashallah, good qurbani of a cow or 2 cows, but it's all haram. Look at this. These are implants. Almost reasonably well, because this is where the midline is. But I do not know if they have enough clearance. Yeah, that looks good. They're almost equidistant, but here the molar is going to be too wide, first molar. So this should have been slightly mesial. And again, I can see little margin right there. On the second one, I see no margin. So this implant crown is going to be open right there and open right here. It would have been better had they picked up these abutments into the impression with lab analogs and send it to the laboratory so they could fabricate the final crowns on the abutments that actually are going into patient's mouth, and then you put them inside the mouth and you're fine. Parallelism in this case is great. It's right down the center of the occlusion. That's good. But this is, the first molar is too far distal. It should have been slightly mesier. This should have been a center. Look at the molar. It's about 7 to 8 millimeter wide. So from right here, the implant needs to exit at 3.5 millimeters. So this is one width too far. Now the crown that's going to be made would have a big bulge on the mesial, and the food impaction will happen there. God help this person, whoever it is. Look at this. They're supposed to have crowns stuck to 1 millimeter preps. Okay, this tooth and this support tooth will probably supporting it. BDRs are there. I cannot even comment on this any further. Look at this. The preps. There's no facial reduction. It's out of the arch. This is the case. Very likely, I can almost bet, if we see the original, all the patient needed was some ortho, and they could have benefited from it. So if the patient does not accept your treatment, tell him, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna do haram for you. I will do only halal. I cannot hurt you. And you know what? If I take a look, I'm not gonna show you, but there's about 60 to 70 units of crown that still need to be made, and each one is worse example than the last. Look at this prep. Where is the prep? It sliced through. There's undercut right there. Where is the margin? There is no margin. There is decay or something left because there's a defect on the premolar right there. They don't draw parallel to each other. There's an undercut right here. And this is it. On May 28th it came in. What are we doing, for God's sake? And as they were cutting this tooth, they also cut the adjacent premolar. You see the marks, burr marks? The burr was taken through and you cut the adjacent tooth. I'm not mentioning anybody's name because I do not know who they are. I don't want to know who they are. A lot of people I know in this city, and there are some of them are part of the improvisation group too. But this is ridiculous. Please don't do this. Don't do this. Take another case. What is this crown? The lab had to cut the margin. You see? What happened? What is this? There's no occlusion. And if you take a look from the side, which way, how much is the reduction? Which way things are going? And invariably I see burn marks on the adjacent tooth. Because whenever you prep this, you cut the side tooth. Is this how the prep is done inside the mouth in your book? Would you like to have somebody do this kind of prep in your mouth? Or your mother or your father or your brother or your wife? Would you have that? I seriously doubt it. Another one. Look, the same one I think that we showed earlier. Undercuts. So there's tons of them, and I hope we learn something from it and we don't do it. Thank you.